It's not live. Hi. Oh, there we are. Now we're live. Hi. Hi. What's everybody doing? We're all fine here. How are you?
Do you think they can? Oh, they can answer in the chat room. Yes, so they can.
Now that they can. Hey, did you know that Apple took 2 hours to announce that they have 4 new products coming out?
Exciting.
Well, I think technically, I guess, yeah, it is 4. Well, 5. 6.
Well, okay,
6
so you're
is pushing it. I think
kind of the 8 is 2 because of the plus, right?
Yes.
And then the 10, and then the Apple TV 4K. There are 2 models. You're gonna count all the storage.
The capacity the storage doesn't.
And then you're
fit.
counting air power.
No.
Well, so what? Apple Watch, Apple TV.
Well,
Apple,
wait.
iPhone 8,
a little
iPhone
fast
8 Plus,
here,
iPhone 10. That's
cowboy.
5.
You went a little far here, cowboy.
Stop calling me cowboy. What I miss?
So you're counting Apple. iPhone 8 and 8 Plus as 2 different products, which I think is fair.
Okay.
If you really want to push it, I think you could argue in a court of law that some people might consider that under certain circumstances, the Apple Watch Series 3, the Apple Watch Series 3 LTE.
Oh, but isn't that kind of like storage differences?
Yeah, it kind of is. That's why I'm saying, it's
all right.
Kind of like Series 3 is different from Series 2, right?
I'm actually, when I say 4 products, I'm considering there's the iPhone 8. You can get a big one and a small one.
Of course. No, of course. Obviously, yes, clearly. Yeah.
But yes, you're right. It all depends on where you want to draw that line.
Uh-huh.
Hello, Mr. Magic. How are you? Speaking to the chat room.
I thought all of a sudden I had earned myself a new nickname.
I could see that. I could see considering you Mr. Magic.
Yeah, I think it could work.
But you know, if there's one thing I've learned, Patrick, it's le client a toujours raison.
Okay, so 2 things here. First of all, complex grammatical structure, kind of.
Mm.
It's not just like
right, okay,
verb,
right. I had to use a particle.
Mm-hmm. And second, you didn't nearly change your tone as much as you usually do.
I'm getting better.
I think this is major progress. Yeah.
This is high praise. I feel good about this now.
Mm-hmm. I'm quite impressed.
Bien sûr.
Oh, now you did it again.
I know, I did the weird voice. I'm sorry. But of course.
I wonder what the English language equivalent of this would be.
Well, in English, it's maybe
Maybe a little
right?
bit, yeah.
In American, would it be like a cowboy voice or something, I guess?
No, not really, because we don't speak like you do, but clearly
we actually speak like that. Yeah, right. Okay, fine. Okay, partner.
I would love to be able to make accents, to do accents like this.
All right.
I'm not very good at all of these.
Well, what we are good at is talking about tech stuff. You ready to do it?
Yes.
Man, I know. It's the 2-hour announcements. They just pull it out of you. All right. Here we go. Daily Tech News Show is powered by you. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. This is the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, September 12th, 2017. I'm Tom Merritt. He's Patrick Beja.
Yes, I am. How is it, Tom?
I'm good. Welcome to the show. Roger Chang, our producer, is here as well. Hi, Roger.
Hello, I'm a talking website.
You are on the video a talking website. On audio, that joke makes no sense.
Tom, before we start, I did want to mention something.
Sure.
Yesterday, you had a long discussion about scooping and spoiling different bits of news
Right.
for different types of
When it's
people and
different for a
organization.
movie versus a tech story. Right. Yeah. No, it was a fun discussion with Veronica.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe it's also different for people and big news that they might or might not have about things happening in their lives.
I guess.
And,
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's just I just thought it was a really interesting conversation that you had. So
what makes you apply it to personal stuff? That's it.
I don't know. It was possibly something that came through my mind towards the end of the show. I mean, we don't need to spend too much time on it. It was just something that I thought of.
Oh, you mean when I announced that you're entering the priesthood? I apologize. I misread the French Patreon post you had when I said you were going to be a father.
Right.
Yeah.
That's, now that you mention it, it is true that it was something that possibly I would be looking forward to announcing to our audience and sharing in the joy of that announcement of me becoming a much more religious person than I had been until now. But, it's fine. It's, as you said, spoilers in certain domains aren't really very shouldn't be considered spoilers, and I think that's the case here. So yeah. Anyway,
Patrick may have something else to tell you by the end of this show. It sounds like. But let's start with a few tech things you should know. Today at a press conference in Cupertino, California, Apple announced a new watch, an Apple TV device that supports 4K and HDR, 3 new iPhones with wireless charging, one of which has an OLED screen. Most of the new products go up for pre-order September 15th, shipping September 22nd. The new OLED iPhone, though, called the iPhone 10, will go into pre-order October 27th for shipping November 3rd. And we will talk more about that announcement in a little bit.
Apple also updated its website to note that macOS High Sierra will come out of beta and be available for all September 25th.
Now, here are some more top stories. Researchers have devised a Bluetooth remote code attack they call BlueBorne that can be used to attack unpatched. They're not very unmatched if you can attack them like this. Unpatched Windows, Linux, and Android devices. Also works against iOS 9 and older. The attack only requires Bluetooth to be on. No user action needed, which is why it's kind of nefarious. Microsoft patched the vulnerability in July, but did not disclose it at the time. Google has provided a patch to device makers for Android as of last month and is making it available today for Pixel phones. There is no evidence of the exploit being used in the wild. So nasty exploit, but mostly patched.
I think this is one more example of the, in the eternal debate of should things be updated automatically versus via user prompts. Both have their, pros and cons. This is yet another example of the fact that doing things automatically, even though they do cause problems, does have its advantages as well.
Well, and also this is the typical human reaction of like, why wasn't this patched before? And it's because they didn't know about the vulnerability before. And then once they told them, they worked on getting it patched. And these are researchers who discovered it. It's not in the wild. So if it has been in the wild, nobody would have known about it until these researchers discovered it anyway. So this is mostly good news. Like, yes, it would be nicer if those patches came early. I agree.
Yeah, that's always the case. But I really do think, we're seeing people are, well, maybe, I don't know about the common folk, but even people who are remotely interested in tech are understanding now that there are these vulnerabilities and this is how it works, and you research them and so I think, I'm mostly thinking about Windows 10, and I don't want to launch into that huge debate again, but basically for many, many things, having the updates be applied automatically makes things easier for most people. And in this case, for example, we hadn't learned about the attack. We didn't know it was possible. We didn't know anything, but it turns out it's already patched. Yeah. If you didn't have that, urgency of don't forget to patch your thing because there's this scary attack that's happening, most people would probably not have done it. But if it's done automatically, you're already safe.
Yeah.
Just do the patch. Samsung's president of mobile business, Ko Dong-jin, told the Associated Press that the company has a goal of producing a Galaxy Note smartphone with a bendable display in 2018. Samsung first demoed a flexible display prototype called Yum at CES in 2013. Samsung also said it has received 650,000 pre-orders for the Note 8, 2.5 times the number it received for the Note 7 in the same period of time.
That's pretty impressive. I actually am not surprised that the Note 8 is selling well. That it's selling 2.5 times as well as the Note 7 is surprising. It's I don't mean that I don't mean to damn it with faint praise. Surprising that it's that popular. It's that good of a phone, I guess. So people are willing to order it. So, I was always one who didn't want to overplay the fears of, the Note 7 had the battery problems. No one will ever order one again. But this is quite a lot better than I would have expected.
Yeah, I think it's the same for me. It's definitely, contradicting my initial reaction when the Note 7 issues surfaced that the brand was dead. I honestly thought that the brand was going to have to be retired, and Samsung very steadfastly proved me and many other people wrong. I'm wondering if there isn't at least a portion of that increase in number coming from people who did have a Note 7 or who were wondering about buying a Note 7, held off or got it, reimbursed, and thought, I'll see what I do, and maybe I do want that specific feature set of the Note phones, and I'm satisfied with what Samsung has done, and I'm happy. I consider the Note 8 to be a safe choice, and so maybe they delayed their purchase. Maybe that's part of it.
More than 30 lawsuits have been filed in the United States against Equifax over the security breach, which exposed records of 143 million U.S. residents. Meanwhile, the Do Not Pay bot, that's the one that helps contest parking tickets. It started in the UK. It's now available in all 50 states in the U.S., can also create paperwork to sue Equifax for negligence in small claims court. Now, you'd still have to serve the papers to Equifax yourself. It won't do that for you. You also have to show up in court if you want to pursue something like this. Meanwhile, Equifax announced on Twitter that it is waiving fees for removing and placing security freezes for the next 30 days. And if you remember from Friday's show, that was Shannon Morse's big advice is if you're worried about this, put a freeze on your security and it doesn't cost that much. And you'll have to lift it if you need to, buy a house or get a loan or something like that. But it's going to protect you. And now Equifax is going to let you do it for free. And even if you have to lift it within the next 30 days, you won't you won't get charged for that either.
Yeah, I would have many questions and comments about this. You already talked about it at length yesterday, so I'll hold off. But wow, man.
Yeah, I think that says it all.
Yeah. Nintendo announced that it will resume production of the NES Classic console for shipping in summer 2018. Nintendo also announced it will extend shipments for the SNES Classic console into 2018, which were originally scheduled to end sometime this year.
This is one of those stories where the headlines bug me, and I know it's just me because I've been doing this job too long, but people say, oh, and Nintendo backtracks and decides to ship the NES Classic after all next summer. Nintendo never said it would never ship the NES Classic again. It said it wasn't going to ship it again this year, and it's not. But very wisely, they've said, okay, our next available window to crank up production for it again is coming with a shipping date of next summer, so we're going to do that. It's just a classic example of Nintendo being very orderly and saying, no, we can't change our schedule, but as soon as there's an opening, we'll start producing it again, and they did.
Yeah, it's not like you can snap your fingers and make them appear. There are, delays in these chains and manufacturing processes and all of this. I think it's also interesting that it is cutting the I was going to use a French expression translated into English that wouldn't have worked at all. Cutting the grass under the feet of scalpers.
I like that, though. That makes sense to me. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, right. There you go.
Maybe we'll introduce it. Yeah.
I think we can make it a DTNS staple.
Yeah.
They're having the grass cut under their feet, and showing that people and companies incredibly, and unless you're making diamonds, you don't want to artificially constrain the production and availability of your product. And this is yet another example of this. Nintendo has no interest in making the thing that people want to buy not available for them to buy it. If they can produce it, they will. And, you know, clearly that's what they're going to be doing, not just with the NES, but with the SNES as well, which is going to be available this fall. And if they had wanted to constrain supply artificially and increase the demand or perceived value, they could have stayed silent and let the craze wash over the gamers over the next few months and then announce that, you know, they were selling more. But clearly that's not what they're doing, and for good reason.
Folks, if you want to get all the tech headlines each day in about 5 minutes, it helps you really keep up to date. If you feel like you're falling behind, don't. Subscribe to Daily Tech Headlines, dailytechheadlines.com, and you can keep up very easily. You can get it as a podcast on the Amazon Echo, as a flash briefing, and in the Anchor app at anchor.fm. All right, folks. Oh, I'm supposed to play that when I say that. There we go. Apple announced a bunch of things, as we mentioned, and they started with something that I know I'm a big softie, but I thought was very sweet and very touching. And you could tell it actually meant something to Tim Cook. I don't think he was putting it on in a what was a short but compelling tribute to Steve Jobs at the Steve Jobs Theater. I was impressed by that. I was less impressed by other things. I had varying impressions of other things they announced later in the day. But Patrick, how did you feel on the whole about the announcement?
It's kind of difficult because it should be an announcement that has weight, because it is 10 years since the first iPhone was announced. And of course, Steve Jobs, probably his most famous conference, and he was famous for conferences, and this one is the biggest one. The iPhone, if you want to, it's very easy to argue it's the most important product of the company that the company has ever put out. It is by far financially the biggest portion of their revenue, by far. It's completely transformed Apple and their footprint in the world. So it would, my point is that conference, that event should have had more weight than it did, because I think the products that were announced were interesting, but they weren't the iPhone again, which, if we're being honest, they probably couldn't be. But there's a small chance.
The iPhone was a phone, an iPod, an internet communications device. You know, it was new. It was new for Apple anyway. And it was new with the touchscreen in a lot of ways. This was an event that discussed the evolution, the latest evolution of their product lines. And I don't think they meant it to actually be anything more than that.
I think this, for me, if we're talking about meaning and you know, bird's eye view, I think this is putting to rest the idea that Apple is going to do the iPhone again, which is a very artificial way of looking at things. And I think it's going to make it so people who were hoping that this was going to happen again, that they were going to have a truly revolutionary product put out, if it's not happening now in the 10 years, and we'll discuss the phone that they announced, then maybe we shouldn't be hoping for it. So it's going to put it to rest until maybe, you know, they or someone else, but maybe
until
they
do
do it again.
Comes out or something.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But at this point, I think even the people who were super staunch defenders of the idea that Apple is going to keep doing the revolutionary things, I think they're going to go, all right, well, we'll see.
Well, let's start with the watch. WatchOS 4 was announced to be arriving September 19th. They talked about that at WWDC, so not much new there, but a new piece of hardware, Apple Watch Series 3, which has a dual-core processor, an altimeter built in, a new W2 Bluetooth and Wi-Fi chip, and the big attractive feature is cellular data built in. So LTE or UMTS in your watch. You can use the same number as your iPhone. I'm still waiting to find out how that works if you don't have an iPhone. Siri can also talk back to you from the watch. It's not just Siri putting something on the display. It can actually speak to you. And it comes in a wide variety of bands, as well as gold, silver, and space gray cases. There are special Nike Plus versions. And it starts at $329 for the regular Watch Series 3, $399 if you want the one with cellular data. Orders are starting, as most of these products announced today, September 15th, available September 22nd. Solid watch announcement. I don't have much else to say about it.
Yeah, so I'm pretty certain it's not going to work without an iPhone. You're going to need the iPhone to set it up, so I don't think the question of how does it work without an iPhone is really a question.
There's no reason it couldn't have its own LTE number assigned to it.
Yeah, but I think it's going to be like the iPhone needed the PC for a very long time to be set up. I think this is going to be the case for the watch. Maybe I'm wrong, but I would suspect that's how it works for a number of reasons. I think, we're seeing more and more clearly the fact that the Apple Watch has kind of decided what it is. It's a health and fitness product, and everything else is kind of complementing or supplementing that kind of use. And I'm sure some people will use it not for that purpose and will use the LTE version as an independent device that they use with wireless headphones to go around without their phone. I suspect that it's going to be a very rare case. It's going to be mostly people who go work out and don't want to have their phone with them.
This is the bet, though. Apple says, fine, you all want to use it for heart rate monitoring and fitness. We're going to give you a health study with Stanford on heart rate monitoring. We're going to fulfill that beyond your expectations. But we bet it's useful for other things. And one of the things that kept it from being useful was not having its own data connection. So we're going to put that in there and we're going to downplay it and see where it goes. And I think that'll be interesting to watch. Watch. Apple introduced the Apple TV 4K with support for HDR10 and Dolby Vision HDR. The new Apple TV runs an A10X processor with a new TV OS, and major studios have agreed to make 4K movies available in iTunes for the same price as HD, and Apple will even upgrade your previous purchases from HD to 4K. The TV app is coming to 7 new countries. So if you're wondering, like, okay, the US people have that TV app, is that any good? Well, now you can try it for yourself in Canada and Australia first, with 5 more countries to follow. Apple's also adding live news and sports to the TV app. So if you don't understand the TV app, it keeps track of what you're watching no matter what app it's in. And then it keeps it up there to say, oh, you've been watching Firefly and Hulu. Here's the next episode of Firefly. Oh, you were watching Outlander in the Stars app. Here's the next episode of Outlander, without you having to know the apps. Now it's going to keep track of live news and sports. So if you want to know what's playing, you can go to a sports tab, or it will just tell you, like, hey, the game's on right now, and it'll be up there right next to your shows. New Apple TV is available for 32 gigabytes at $179 or 64 gigabytes for $199. Pre-ordering September 15th, shipping September 22nd. When you compare this to Roku and Fire TV, it's expensive.
It's expensive. It's still the same price as it is for the current model, more or less, of the Apple TV.
$149 if you want to get the HD version. They're still selling that one too, yeah.
Right. Yeah, without judging the product itself, I'm personally very happy with mine. I think the big thing here is the the price of the 4K movies, because obviously if you have a 4K capable device and no content for it, then you have a big problem, and they would have been mocked eternally if they hadn't found an agreement with the studios to provide that content. I'm really wondering, the floating of the intentional floating of rumors and leaks by companies, I usually don't buy. I don't think they do it on purpose. Certainly not Apple, to the extent to which their products leak. But in this case, I'm wondering if they didn't maybe leak the state of the negotiations with the executives, saying they want to charge you, $25 to $30 for the movies, even if you had already bought the HD version, and collated the reactions, the outrage from the media and the public, and went back to them and said, guys, maybe this isn't going to go over so well for you if that's how it is. And getting the deal.
Yeah.
The movies, not just, same price for 4K, but not even requiring you even an upgrade fee for a movie you have already purchased in HD. They could very easily have, billed you $5 to upgrade to 4K. They got that too.
If Apple comes out today and says, hey, guess what? 4K movies will only cost you $5 more than the HD versions. And if you want to upgrade your existing ones, you only pay $5. And that was all we'd ever heard about it. People would say, okay, I guess that's not bad. It is 4K. Yeah. But instead, like you say, it leaked out, and maybe it was intentional. And suddenly it was, what? Apple wants to keep it the same and the studios are being greedy. I'm mad. And the studios kind of couldn't do anything else at that point.
I think so. I think they could have said, well, make people pay $5 and make them a little bit more expensive for at least a year or two. I think this is a really good deal for people. They really want people to go to 4K, I think.
Yeah, and they also made mention that Netflix 4K will be coming to the Apple TV later this year, and that Amazon app is still being promised. The one they promised at WWDC will be coming with 4K on it as well. As expected, Apple introduced the 4.7-inch iPhone 8 and the 5.5-inch 8 Plus with glass front and back, Qi standard wireless charging, speakers that are supposedly 25% louder than the iPhone 7, a 6-core A11 64-bit chip, Apple-designed GPU that is supposedly 30% faster than in the A10, tuned for augmented reality. There's also an Apple-designed image sensor processor that also helps the AR, but there's also a new 12-megapixel camera sensor that provides 83% more light with better color. The 8 Plus has f1.8 and f2.8 sensors with its dual cameras. It also features an Apple-designed video encoder that can do 4K at 60 frames per second and 1080p at 240 frames per second, so you can do good slow-mo stuff, as well as a new feature in the 8 Plus called portrait lighting. The iPhone 8 comes in silver, space gray, and a new gold finish, starting at $699 for the 8, $799 for the 8 Plus. Pre-order starting September 15th, shipping September 22nd. And they also let us know that iOS 11 is coming to everybody who has a compatible device starting on September 19th.
Yeah, so this is all of this, including the iPhone 10, by the way, was leaked and was very accurately leaked. So it's kind of, you were talking about leaks yesterday, and I think this is a prime example of why people get frustrated about leaks. It's that it does diminish the impact of the announcement. And the spoiler
not
conversation
responsibility, right? Like it's so
no, of course.
So it doesn't have an impact. I think there's bigger problems with this product line. Other than wireless charging, what's the difference between this and the 7?
It's kind of like the difference between the 6 and the 6S, and they're saying there's the wireless charging, so that's why the different design with the glass back means that it's a different design, and so that justifies not really. I think this is kind of a fun, not even a fun, it's an evolutionary, standard evolution of their product line. So it's not that exciting. There are some goodies. I think the portrait lighting feature is actually quite impressive. For those who aren't aware, basically they use the portrait capabilities of the current 7 line that differentiates between your subject when you're taking a portrait picture of someone and the background, and they can do different operations on the background and the subject. So they could completely make the background completely disappear, apply a certain kind of lighting on the person, and make it look, on their demo pictures, it looks amazing. There's no reason to believe that it's not going to be possible to do something like that. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, it's a new iPhone, always cool. It doesn't have anything to get people to super incredibly excited about.
Yeah, and if this was the 7S and this was the end of the announcement, we'd say, well, it's the tick to the talk, right? Like this is just what they do in the off eras. But I think what makes the iPhone 8 stand out as a little bit of a weird slot is that they announced the iPhone 10, and suddenly you're like, well, okay, it's 600. What is the prices? It's like $649. You have the 7, and then at $700 you have the 8, and then at $999 you have the 10. it's becomes a more complex product line than you're used to seeing from Apple. And we should talk about all of this together. Apple also announced a 5.8-inch phone called the iPhone 10. It's spelled with an X, but it's pronounced 10. Has a glass front and back as well, a stainless steel band, Qi wireless charging as well. But the big thing is the screen, 2436 by 1125. 458 pixels per inch, OLED display. It can show HDR, and there's no home button. So they change your gesture control vocabulary here. You swipe up from the bottom to go to the home screen. You press and hold the side button for Siri. You swipe up and pause to access multitasking. You swipe down to get to the control panel, and I'm still unclear how you get to notifications separately from that. But to replace Touch ID, we did get facial recognition. Face ID takes advantage of the A11 Bionic Neural Engine. So they have some machine learning built right there on the chip. Facial recognition can also make custom emojis, has dual 12-megapixel camera sensors with optical image stabilization. That's pretty impressive. Apple promises 2 more hours of battery life over the iPhone 7, and the iPhone 10 will be available in space gray and silver in 64 and 256 gigabyte versions, starting at $999 for the 64. Pre-orders for this start later, October 27th for the pre-orders, and shipping November 3rd. I would expect limited supply as well from everything we've been hearing. So now you got an OLED screen with the wireless charging and the little machine learning and the Face ID, which, yes, Face ID's demo failed in the presentation, but if you noticed, it failed in a way where it said you need to put in the passcode to unlock Face ID. So Face ID didn't fail. It was obviously it had timed out, and it was doing its regular thing where every once in a while, even with Touch ID, it'll say, you know what, you need to put in your passcode this time. So I don't know why that happened, but it wasn't necessarily a failure in the facial recognition. Anyway, after that, it worked great for him. What do you think, Patrick?
I think the technology itself seems pretty solid, and that's already something to be noted. The detail with which they perform that face recognition seems, and we'll need testing and all of this, but it does seem like it's fairly safe. To the extent that something like that can be
It's got the same secure enclave as Touch ID has. So as far as the data that it stores on your face, that is as safe as your fingerprint data was.
Right, but it's also, it does, it has a mapping of your face that is an actual, smooth mapping. It's not like 7 points or something silly like that. That would be easy to defeat. So the point here is that they're making it, they're marketing it as this is better than Touch ID. Yeah, they even had a little mention there that Touch ID is, 1 in 50,000 chance of having someone else having the same one as you, or maybe not that.
Being able to unlock your phone randomly.
Being able to unlock your phone, which, by the way, that was interesting. They never said that figure.
Yeah, that was kind of like, that's pretty low, actually. Yeah.
And Face ID has a 1 in a million chance of it being fooled, which I think at that point you're pretty safe for something that you're going to use to just unlock your phone. But so that is a pretty solid piece of technology. The phone itself, I honestly, having seen all of those bezel-less phones, I thought the iPhone 10 was a little bit bezel-y. If you know what I mean. It's like, it feels like it does have a little bit of a bezel that is. When I was holding my phone, my iPhone 6S, to the screen and looking at the sides, and it is a little bit thicker on the 6, but not that much thicker. So it's really the top and the bottom that have been reduced, obviously.
Well, and it has a much bigger notch than the Essential phone. If the notch in the Essential phone bugged people, this notch is really going to bug people.
Yeah, and we've seen the Essential, the Galaxy Edge, and all of those that have like the bezel actually kind of disappears. So it's, again, we had seen a lot of previews, a lot of leaks. I'm not sure that this phone, it's an interesting position for a phone to be in. It's definitely marketed as the premium experience that, and most phones, it's very likely that the one for next year is going to be following this design or something slightly modified from this design. Which, by the way, I don't know which naming convention they're going to be having, but they did a Windows 10 there. They went from 8 to 10 and skipped 9. That was interesting.
Well, and they also did an X instead, which is actually, I mean, Apple did it first, right? They went from
Mac OS 10, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so I mean, this I don't think it represents what they were saying it represents, which it's very common with Apple, but it's not like the next step in smartphones in the smartphone world. It's also a great high-end phone with interesting features. I think I'm gonna wait for people to get their hands on it and tell us how it feels, because sometimes, I might even say often, some products, maybe even Apple products, look a little bit more mundane when you see them in the presentations, and when you have your hands on them, they're more convincing because the build quality is really high and everything.
I found that true of the Essential phone. It did not look impressive at all on the page to me, but when I got it in my hands, it felt a lot better. And I think that's absolutely true of most phones. When you actually hold them and you get to play, feel the texture, feel the weight in your hand, see it in 3D as you turn it around, it makes a big difference. I don't know that this is the future of smartphones either. Maybe that OLED screen will just blow me away, but Face ID looks better than I expected, honestly. Yeah. And they did a good job of reassuring me that it is at least as secure as Touch ID. But yes, is it worth $999? I mean, if the Samsung phones weren't coming out at $949, I'd say absolutely not. On the other hand, that seems to be the trend, is to sell your flagship phones for $900+ and Apple usually sells them at a few more dollars than everybody else. So I guess $999 is the expected amount, but that is a lot of money for a phone.
Yeah, I think they're also supply constrained. They made a big deal of the, how did they call it, Super Retina display?
Yeah,
it was a funny way of putting it. Basically, they were saying, finally, the OLED screens are good enough that we can use them in an iPhone, which was, an interesting way of addressing the fact that many other manufacturers have had OLED screens before. That being said, Apple needs a lot of inventory, and they require a lot of screens when they're going to build a phone. So I'm wondering if part of this isn't, the fact that they knew they weren't going to have enough to produce as many as they wanted, and so the delayed production and the price might be part of that as well. But I don't think I honestly don't think it's going to be objectively worth that amount. You're going to get, if you could get for $200 less, a perfectly capable iPhone, if that's what you want, which is one of the latest models with the iPhone 8, but it doesn't mean that it's not, subjectively worth it for the people who are going to buy one. And that's part of the equation as well.
Now, there is the matter of twins. They did acknowledge it. If your twin is evil, you'll need to use a passcode, because apparently, while it is hard to fool this, and yet it's good at telling who you are, even if you have a hat on or something like that. If you have an identical twin, that facial structure is close enough that it'll probably fool it. So I know that Ethan Kane in our chat room and some of our friends who have twins have said, we'll try this out on our kids. But it seems to be the only real drawback to the Face ID, other than all of the drawbacks that facial recognition would have for anybody, no matter what they're putting in.
Yeah, they did also mention something that we wondered about. It won't work if your eyes are closed.
Closed, right?
So if you're sleeping,
paying attention, you have to be looking at the phone, right?
Someone can't take your phone, put it in front of your face when you're sleeping, and unlock it. So that's unless you.
And also, they made it sound like Apple Pay is going to be seamless, and I'm a little skeptical about that because I've had problems with Apple Pay and Touch ID already in the syncing of when I unlock it and when I pay, and the Face ID thing seems like it might introduce some hilarity as well. So
So how is it different from Touch ID for Apple Pay though? Because you confirm with your finger, and here you confirm with your face. Is it?
Yeah,
different?
and I've had problems where I confirm and then I touch, and it was asked me to confirm again. So the fact that I have my finger there means like when it's down near the reader, I can confirm. Now I'm gonna have to like position myself to look at it, I guess. But maybe it won't be that big of a deal. I'm just saying. Hey, what was it like on the ground at Apple? Well, let's find out. We talked a little earlier to Pete Wells of the Sydney Morning Herald, who was there.
Hey, DTNS patrons.
Oh, wait,
it's
that's Sarah Lane. Okay, real quickly, we're going to talk with Peter Wells, who is at the Apple campus. Where are you right now, Peter?
I'm still in the foyer of the Steve Jobs Theatre, which has been turned into a hands-on area. So it's pretty loud back here. So I do apologize for the sound.
No, we're hearing you okay. We're getting a lot of natural sound. It feels like we're there with you. And we've run through all of the announcements. We know all of the things that are happening. So what we want from you is a little bit of what was it like to be in there, anything you noticed, and anything getting your hands on stuff you think might be different for people.
Yeah, look, it was really good to get my hands on the iPhone X. Of course, that's the big thing that everyone's going to want to know what it feels like. It does feel very solid in the hand. It's a really nice, solid, well-engineered piece of, a phone. It's very different, actually, to, I was expecting it to be similar to the Galaxy S8, which has that same kind of edge-to-edge display. It feels a lot thicker, a lot more solid than that. And yeah, the chrome sides are quite lovely as well to hold on to. Really nice phone, very, very expensive, but yeah, very nice looking phone.
Is it something where you look at it and you realize like, okay, I'm paying $1,000, but I feel like I've got $1,000 worth of display there in front of me?
Ooh, I don't know. That's a very hard question to answer. I mean, it's clearly a phone for people with a very large disposable income. And yeah, look, it definitely feels polished. It feels like the best iPhone I've held. So yeah, if you're a massive iPhone fan, I guess it's worth the money.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are just going to pay it no matter what. What about the iPhone 8s? I feel like I'm having a hard time deciding what they're for. They have wireless charging, which the 7 does not, but otherwise they're kind of a weird in-betweener.
They do have the new True Tone display, and the camera has been improved as well. So the True Tone display really does look gorgeous. I've been using that on an iPad for a while now. Really love that display, so that's good to see at least. But beyond that, yeah, I guess it does feel like the standard kind of yearly upgrade, the S cycle kind of upgrade that you'd normally get.
All right, well, let's finish up with just your general impressions. What was it like to be in the Steve Jobs Theater, hear that sort of sweet tribute to Steve at the beginning? What's the atmosphere like there?
Yeah, it was a lovely atmosphere to kick off the day. I think that they handled it well without being a little, without getting too over the top in the reverence for the man. But yeah, it was a really lovely experience. And the ground itself is incredible. So the theater is crazy Apple, as you would expect. Every detail is shiny and beautiful. But yeah, it's been a really great morning. Actually, I was going to say the one thing that I'm really most interested in is that new watch. The fact that the watch has LTE and that you can actually sync your phone number across to the watch is a really big deal. That was something that I know other phone makers and watchmakers have tried to pull off in Australia, and the carriers have always said no to them. So only Apple, it seems, can make those deals happen.
Yeah, and I'm curious what the details will be like if you don't have an iPhone, what the price of that data plan is, what that phone number is like, and how the syncing works then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Peter, thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. We'll let you get back to it. And check out Peter Wells. You can follow him on Twitter at Peter Wells. And, of course, look for his work in the Sydney Morning Herald and elsewhere. Thanks again, Peter.
Thank you, Tom.
That was very nice of Peter to take some time to chat with us there and give you a little sense of what it's like on the ground. In the end, though, we all have to make our own decisions. Now, I often will buy things from these events because I feel like I need to check them out. I haven't decided yet. I won't buy an iPhone 8. There's no need for that. It's not that different. iPhone 10, there might be a question of, is it worth the money? And so I may want to buy it for that reason. That's why I bought the Essential phone, to be honest. Patrick, what about you?
I'm on the on my 2-year cycle, I usually buy. Recently, I bought a phone every 2 years, so I was ready. I had my credit card in one hand and keyboard in another. I was ready to shell out the $1,000 for work purposes, of course, for the iPhone 10. The presentation actually put me off a little bit, so now I'm not certain. It's still more likely than not that I'm going to get it, but I'm going to wait for the hands-on reactions of the press, and yeah. So it's very possible I will, but I'm not. It's not a definitive, already made decision like it was 2 hours ago.
Gotcha. No, that's very interesting. Well, thank you, Patrick. As always, FrenchSpin.com, the place to go if you want to find out the other things that Patrick has going on. Anything to tell people about?
That's about it. Not Patrick on Twitter and Facebook. And I'm, as you said, I have shows at FrenchSpin.com. And if you enjoy French, maybe you want to go to FrenchSpin.fr, where I have my French shows, including shows about tech and gaming. And yeah, aside from that, come January, roughly, there will be someone else that will be born ready.
Ah, yes. This is what I accidentally thought was totally public knowledge because I read it on Patreon yesterday, but you were just telling the Patreons at that point. But all I said was Father Patrick. So tell us more. What's the deal?
Well, there might be a mini Patrick in the works coming fairly soon, and obviously we are both incredibly excited, and I was telling the patrons for my show, the Phileas Club, and it's that the kind of thing that is it. We have a strange relationship, us podcasters, with our audience and our communities. They've been with us usually for many years, in my case for about 12, especially the French community, and they've followed me through many different stages in my life, when I changed jobs, met my wife, got married, all of this. And the fact that we're now getting into that stage of our lives is really exciting, and sharing it with them and seeing the feedback is incredible from both the French and English communities. So I'm getting emotional now, so I'm going to shut up. But it's something that is really special, and the fact that we can share it with quote unquote strangers on the internet and get the kind of warmth and wholesomeness that we do when the internet is supposedly a hostile place is something that I feel incredibly thankful for. So anyway, babies, or well, one baby, hopefully, right?
Well,
yes.
or you'll have a problem with Face ID. That's what you're looking at. No, seriously, congratulations to both of you guys. That's fantastic.
Thank you.
And thanks to everybody who supports us and lets us make a living doing this, giving a little value back for this show, for the value you get for it. We'd like to increase that value. And not only will that help out Patrick Beja pay for some diapers, but it will help out Sarah Lane, and she needs your help.
Hey, DTNS patrons, it's Sarah Lane here, and I need your help because I'm trapped in a box and I'd like to be let out before I pass out. So here's what I need you to do. Help us hit the $20,000 milestone on Patreon, and I will exit this box and join Tom as a regular co-host who can see the sun alongside the rest of the DTNS co-hosts too. But that's not all. Reaching the milestone is going to bring you a lot of extra content, an expanded roundtable show, DTNS labs, stuff you want. But we need your help. Go to patreon.com/DTNS and help us out at any amount you can. And also check out the cool rewards you get there too. All right. Talk to you soon.
Let Sarah out of the box, people. We're less than $1,000 away from the goal. We're like $917 away from the goal. So huge thanks to everyone who has already increased pledges or begun supporting us at patreon.com/DTNS. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 2030 UTC, alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And of course, our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. Back tomorrow with Scott Johnson, and we'll be talking to a a member of the electrical grid community about cyber attacks. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Nicely done. Good show. Good
Excellent.
show. Here we go. Leveling.
I'm actually gonna run off right now.
Okay.
I'm seeing some cool titles. I saw one going by referencing parenthood. If I could ask that you just make it about the iPhone or whatever, don't put it in.
Fair enough. Yes, that we will respect that wish. But congratulations, man. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it is exciting and scary.
No, it'll be cool. Trust me.
I trust. I was a little bit nervous before, but I trust Roger so much. Now.
Believe me, I couldn't sleep the first night. I was like, what am I supposed to do?
And then you figure it out. That's the one thing that people have been telling me the most. It's everyone has opinions about what you should do and how you should do it, and everyone will tell you a million things, but ultimately you kind of know you're wired for it, and
you're totally wired for it.
Is different, so yeah.
You'll do things that you didn't think you'd be doing, and you'll be doing it almost, I wouldn't say automatically, but it's like almost second nature.
So my plan currently, since you know how to do things instinctively, is to start game console controller training by age 6 months, so that when they're 1 year old roughly, they can start helping me out on fire team strikes in Destiny 2 and stuff like that.
Hey,
So,
that's one thing I've never done, is try to get her up on video games. I don't know why.
No, everything is different, Roger.
It's
fine.
totally different.
It's just-
You know what? You'll know when her or his personality starts coming through.
Well, I
Yeah.
guess we know Patrick's child will be a pro gamer then.
I don't want to put that much pressure. I mean,
Always happening.
a hobby is cool.
Millions
all
of
right.
dollars to support you and your wife.
That would be nice.
You're like, I'm not going to put that. That would be really nice. Yes.
And BioCow, it's actually not Finnish, it's Swedish. So yeah, French, English, Swedish, and hopefully Japanese.
But you're in Finland part-time, so they might pick up some Finnish too.
Well, if they will learn Finnish in school. Because Finland has a Swedish-speaking minority, and that my wife is part of that, so it will be Swedish first, and then Finnish in school, which is
Swedish
weird
and French at home, English while podcasting, Japanese for recreation, and Finnish in school. Not bad.
No, a finishing school. Get it?
Hey!
Hey, all right, that's it for me.
All right.
Bye, guys.
See ya. Oh, that's fantastic. I'm so excited for Patrick.
Apple announced a bunch of things. What you did there, Apple. Apple's going to give X to iPhone no home button, a kick in the Bluetooth. iPhone 8 wireless charging, iPhone 9 nothing, iPhone 10 profit. Counting with Apple, 8.1, 10. What happened to iPhone 9, iPhone 7, 8, 9? I get it.
iPhone 7, 8, 9.
iPhone 10, a selfie ad extreme. Apple makes the Dick Tracy watch, but they made the Dick Tracy watch a while ago. Born ready for the iPhone 10. Apple is paying with power, air power. They'll have an app called Shock and Awe.
I think I like Apple announced a bunch of things.
Yeah, good. Done.
It's kind of how I feel. There aren't bad
They
things. There's some good things. They're interesting things. I'll probably end up having to buy at least an Apple TV 4K out of this to try it out for cord killers. Might end up having a drop on the iPhone 10. Haven't decided. How much do you all care? Because that's kind of what determines it. Is, am I going to be able to pull useful information out of this device to inform my shows? So yeah. I'm curious. Now, Roger, before we started recording, was expressing skepticism on Face ID. I was going to pull you in during the main show, but we were.
You guys
we
were
so
coached
full.
pretty well.
Yeah. But your concern is that someone could grab you and force you to unlock your phone by pointing your face at it.
Yeah, the seed for that discussion was there was a Twitter discussion going around. What if, essentially, what if with Face ID, could the authorities, i.e. the police or whoever, force you to unlock your phone? And there was a back and forth about, well, you can do the 5-tap on the button press to lock it out. And, the counter argument of always is that, if you're being surveilled, you might not always be aware of that. And so, I mean, really the crux of the matter is, could this be something that people who are very protective of their ID want to avoid? As amazing as the feature is it something that you would want to give pause to implementing for yourself?
Yeah, well, and I think that's fair. I think for the majority of people, Face ID is probably more secure than what they would otherwise do. But if you are really concerned about this sort of thing, if you're in a sensitive position, let's say, or you have confidential information that people might be trying to get after, the number of situations where you wouldn't be able to do the 5-tap lock are pretty low. But let's say you're like, yeah, but I have to have 0% chance of that. You may just not want to turn this on because, it's hard to fool, but it's also, I mean, yes, you could just close your eyes if somebody's trying to force it in front of your face to unlock. You also have to swipe up at the same time. I don't know. I think in 99% of situations, it's not going to be a problem. But if you're worried, no, you shouldn't use it because it is not a foolproof situation. Put it that way.
Yeah.
But it's not something most people need to worry about.
Unless you have a history with the police or you just don't like the police.
Even police, though, like most of the time when police come, you'll be able to get those 5 taps in quick. Like it's very rarely that they're going to come across you in a situation where you couldn't. It's mostly going to be a traffic stop. If you've just got problems with the police, it would have to be something like you're saying where you're being surveilled by the FBI for something. That's a higher level than just I've had trouble with police. Don't you think?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, like if your eyes are, I don't know. I'm just thinking of the silly things you could do. Like,
all right,
knock
let's go
out.
silly.
You knock someone out. You tape their eyes
hold
open.
Their eyes open.
Just tape them on.
I'm curious if that would work. It says you have to be looking at it, but it doesn't say you have to be conscious. I wonder if it can tell if your eyes aren't moving, because you're unconscious.
I also was wondering, somewhat humorously, what if you got you set your phone up and then you go for some minor plastic surgery, like you got to lift your face or something.
Well, then you put in your passcode and you reset it.
Yeah, you have to reset it.
You're not gonna get locked out of your phone or anything, but yeah, that depends. I mean, it can deal with hats and different expressions and stuff, but yeah, a whole new nose it might not be able to handle.
Whole new nose. It's like the whole biometric thing about it uses a retina scan or uses a fingerprint. And you always have the horror movie where someone cuts off the finger or takes out the eyeball.
Yeah, and some of that is ridiculous. Some of that is overblown. Some of it's just not something that most people are going to have to worry about. But again, if you're talking about worst case scenarios, there's some reality to that. And certainly fingerprint and face are not things you can change. So that's always a concern. You can't, if somebody steals your Face ID, you can't go change it. Well, not without a lot of money for plastic surgery as well. You can't change your fingerprints very easily at all. That's really tough.
See, I'm wondering if someone could rebuild the face, someone gets your phone, but they don't know who you are. You have a limited set of information. Could they rebuild the image of a face of the person based on that security?
Beatmaster says he uses biometrics only for passwords and purchases, never for device unlocking. That's interesting. That's an
Oh, that's very interesting. Why only passwords and purchases?
Tidvix points out that easy depends on how much pain you can handle as far as changing your fingerprints. I guess that way it's harder for people to get into the phone, right?
I use
presume
cash
once someone's in the phone that they can get it.
Oh, because I can't be forced to unlock it then. I see, but they could smack the crap out of you until you divulge the password, I guess. I don't know.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's what I was saying in our pre-recorded conversation is like, there's ways to get a passcode out of you too. You know, surveil you and look over your shoulder if you're not paying close attention.
Persuasion, and then there's persuasion.
Social engineering. It's not like a passcode is always 100% uncrackable either.
Just don't put anything sensitive on your phone.
That's right. I think that is impractical at this point, even for people in sensitive situations. Like at some point, you need to be able to store information, and any information storage is vulnerable. The question is, can you make it reasonably protected?
Well, it depends on Beatmaster says that's against the law. I have bigger words if they persuade me. Oh, well, I don't know. Because it said there's persuasion. There's persuasion.
No.
Well, no, I wasn't actually talking about physical, a physical beatdown. I'm talking about like threatening you with some other crime,
psychological tricks,
or basically like what they do with plea bargains.
Like, well, look, we've got this picture of you doing this. This picture could go away if you give us the passcode. These are all edge cases, mind you.
Oh, no, it is. But that's how you test, really. I mean, it's like saying a bridge can hold 12,000 cars every 30 minutes. Cars pass by it, but you never really test at 12,000. Test at 10,000. But you want to make sure. I'm not saying that it needs to be 100% foolproof, but
it's knowing where the line is, because everything has a vulnerability. That's something I try to remind people. Like nothing is 100% secure. The question is, what level of security do you need to get what you need done? And for most people, it's not 100%. Nobody needs 100% security. But you would like to have it as high as you can get.
So Chum Donkey in the chat room actually brings up something very interesting. She writes, does the Face ID encourage people to take their eyes off the road? With Touch ID, I don't have to look at my phone to skip a song on Pandora or do some other things.
You should not be doing either of those things while you're driving. You should not be unlocking your phone with your thumbprint while you're driving either. That's my response. I don't think Apple is inciting people to do something wrong. People are going to use their phones while they're driving anyway. I don't think Face ID makes it worse. Don't use your phone while you drive. It's incredibly dangerous. Whether you're talking about thumbprints, in a certain respect, it might be safer if you've got it mounted here to be able to unlock it by glancing at it, versus having to think, is my thumb in the right place? Like I could see that possibly being safe, but guess what? Neither one of them are safe. Don't do either one of them.
Get a spouse or a life partner, and then they can do it for you.
Or have a car mode where, the things you need to do can be done very quickly.
Or be very quick.
No. That's like the old Southern Illinois thing about drunk driving. Oh, I'm a fine drunk driver. I drive slow when I'm drunk. No, it doesn't. That's not okay. No.
Get a horse. Just hitch your car to a horse, and
the horse doesn't way home. It'll be fine. All righty. That's it for this episode. Thanks everybody for hanging around. Hope you enjoyed it. And oh my gosh, we are so darn close. I have a really good feeling about this week getting us to the milestone. We even have another milestone. It's not a huge one like this one, but there is something. So even if once we hit the milestone, we'll still want people to support us, because the more value we get from you, the more value we could try to give back, and the virtuous circle continues. But yeah, right now 900 $17 away. We
Ooh,
just need
so close.
917 people to give us $1 a month, $12 a year. So
The price
Thank
of a cup of coffee.
for everybody who has supported us, we'll talk to you soon.